And I got to know him. He was such a beautiful man, such a lovely man. Somewhere I saw footage and I saw this thing and I thought, well, surely you've seen this. That was a loss that clearly had a huge effect. This story, and it's absolutely unbelievable.
The tragedy that unfolded on December 14th in the Brentwood neighborhood was not a scene from a film. It was a brutal and chilling reality that permanently ended the legacy of one of the most respected families in the entertainment industry, Rob and Michelle Reiner. Even now, the world remains in shock, searching for answers. Why did it happen? How could a father who devoted his life to creating stories about love and hope, such as The Princess Bride, meet such a violent end, lying in his own blood, caused by the hand of his own son?
Rob Reiner and Nick got into a, quote, very loud argument. His behavior at Conan's house alarmed the guests because it was so bizarre. One of the guests recalled Rob Reiner telling his son his behavior was inappropriate.
Rob Reiner and his son, Nick, became involved in an intense, heated argument. The confrontation was so loud and unsettling that it immediately caught the attention of guests at Conan O'Brien's home, who found Nick's behavior deeply disturbing. One guest later remembered Rob Reiner sternly telling his son that his conduct was unacceptable. Yet the explanation for what happened cannot be found in sterile police documents, nor at the blood-soaked scene discovered the following morning. The truth had already revealed itself hours earlier, silently, unmistakably, inside a packed room at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party the night before.
Nick attended Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. He was wearing a hoodie. Reports are that he was acting weird, apparently accosting celebrities outside. Nick reportedly stormed off in a huff after a tiff with Bill Hader of SNL and Barry at Conan's Christmas party, and that Rob had been telling people, friends, that they were scared for Nick and scared for his mental state, that it was deteriorating.
At 62, Conan O'Brien, a man whose career was built on laughter, unknowingly became a witness to the last calm moments before disaster. While headlines would later focus on crime tape and forensic vans, the real spark that ignited the tragedy began on Saturday night, long before deadly silence settled over the Reiner household. Tonight, we go back to that moment, December 13th. Together, we will retrace every uneasy second, every nervous glance, every hushed exchange to understand how a son crossed the line into becoming his parents' worst nightmare. Prepare yourself, because what Conan O'Brien saw that night exposes just how fragile the boundary is between celebrity and catastrophe. To understand the depth of the horror, we must reconstruct the setting of that evening. Conan O'Brien's estate was known as a sanctuary for Hollywood's elite, a place of safety and discretion. Here, power and fame were set aside as guests relaxed, sipped expensive scotch, and enjoyed the soft scent of pine drifting through the Christmas air. Laughter filled the rooms. Old friendships were rekindled in an atmosphere of quiet luxury. Everything felt flawless, insulated from reality. Then the heavy wooden door opened, and the mood changed. It was as if the air turned cold. Rob Reiner stepped inside with his wife Michelle and their son, Nick. Under normal circumstances, Rob's presence brought warmth and familiarity. His signature smile, famous for decades, was there, but only on the surface. Conan, ever observant, noticed what others missed. The smile never reached Rob's eyes. Something was fractured beneath the calm exterior. Rob hadn't come to celebrate. He arrived as a father struggling to hold his family together under public scrutiny. He hoped the glow of Hollywood, the comfort of friends, and the holiday spirit might soothe whatever was unraveling inside his son. He believed the world that made them might still be able to save them. Nick Reiner didn't share that belief. That night, he stood out, sharply and ominously. Surrounded by tailored suits and elegant dresses, Nick appeared with a shaved head and oversized hoodie. He didn't greet anyone. His eyes moved constantly, cold and searching, sweeping the room not for connection, but for threat. He didn't resemble a party guest at all. He moved like someone sizing up a mark. Every look was deliberate, tight with tension. He stood out as a jarring disruption, a dark tear across Hollywood's flawless surface. There was no warmth in his behavior, no casual curiosity, only an unsettling intent no one yet knew how to describe. From his position near the edge of the room, Conan O'Brien watched as Nick approached Bill Hader, the widely loved SNL comedian admired for his warmth and humor. But instead of a friendly introduction, Nick crossed every social line without hesitation. There was no greeting, no smile. His voice sliced through the background music with questions that felt precise and cutting. "What's your name? Are you famous?" These were not awkward jokes or drunken remarks. They lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. Nick wasn't seeking information, he was asserting dominance. In that moment, he was openly confronting the world his father had spent decades creating. One by one, Nick stared down Hollywood's elite, stripping them of status and meaning. It was deliberate, confrontational, the unmistakable signal of a mind bent on destruction. And Rob Reiner saw every second of it. Rob's heart raced so violently he feared it showed beneath his suit. This went far beyond parental embarrassment. It was terror, raw and deep. In his son's eyes, Rob saw something unfamiliar and cold, an icy disdain that cut to the bone. Friends, colleagues, even lifelong allies had become targets under Nick's gaze. Then the fragile calm collapsed. The party's delicate balance shattered, not with laughter, but with piercing screams that tore through the refined setting. A furious confrontation erupted between Rob, Michelle, and Nick, unfolding in full view of everyone. It was vicious, chaotic, and impossible to ignore. What had once been a private struggle exploded into the open, like a wound torn apart. Guests who had known Rob for decades stood motionless, glasses frozen in their hands. They no longer saw a commanding director. They saw a man breaking, his authority dissolving under the defiance of his own son. Michelle, long the family's steady foundation, now scanned the room in panic, as if trapped with no escape. Conan O'Brien watched from the edge of the storm, absorbing every detail. He understood immediately, this wasn't a routine family dispute fueled by drinks or opinions. Something far darker was unfolding. What unfolded was far more disturbing than a heated argument. It was a total collapse of self-control. One party guest later told police, "Look at him, shaved head. He didn't seem right at all." Yet the most chilling moment came after the shouting stopped. Rob Reiner leaned toward a close friend and spoke in a low voice. He didn't downplay the situation. He didn't say Nick was just stressed or drunk. Instead, he whispered 6 terrifying words. "I'm scared. I don't know what he'll do next." It was a confession no parent should ever have to make, fear of one's own child. But the warning was swallowed by music as the party slowly, awkwardly continued. According to one source, when the confrontation reached its breaking point, a guest tried to call 911, genuinely afraid for everyone inside the house. The call was stopped. Conan O'Brien, possibly hoping to protect a longtime friend or believing the situation could be contained, intervened. That decision would haunt everyone. If police had arrived that night, Rob and Michelle might still be alive. That single word, "if," is the cruelest weight in this story. Every witness will carry it forever. When the Reiner family finally left, the silence around them felt heavier than any applause Rob had ever earned. They walked toward their car, no longer moving as a united family. As the car disappeared into the Los Angeles night, they weren't just going home. They were heading into something unknown, without cameras, without protection, with only darkness and danger inside the vehicle. Saturday night had been loud and chaotic. Sunday morning in Brentwood arrived in an eerie, unnatural quiet. The sun rose as it always did, casting light on manicured lawns and gated estates. To the outside world, it was just another peaceful Sunday in a wealthy neighborhood. But behind the Reiner gates, the silence was suffocating. The home that once symbolized success and stability now felt terribly wrong. This wasn't rest. It was finality. The noise was gone. Everything was over. The discovery came not through flashing lights or sirens, but through routine. A massage therapist arrived for a scheduled appointment. She rang the bell. No response. Calls went unanswered. Knowing the family was always punctual, she contacted Ro Reiner, Rob's daughter, who lived across the street. Ro ran immediately, clinging to harmless explanations. Oversleeping, dead phones, anything. But the moment she stepped inside the home she had grown up in, the cold air and the smell told her the truth. She found her father first. The details don't need to be described. Her reaction said it all. She didn't try to wake him. She knew. Instinct took over. Roe fled the house, collapsing in the driveway, struggling to breathe. And the most devastating detail of all, she ran outside in terror before she ever found her mother. It wasn't until the ambulances arrived, their sirens tearing through Brentwood's calm morning air, that she learned the full truth. Michelle had been found dead as well, in another room. In a single moment, Roe Reiner went from a daughter stopping by her parents' home on a Sunday morning to someone completely alone in the world, having lost both parents at once. As police tapes sealed off the property, experienced detectives began their work, and one critical detail immediately shifted the case from uncertainty to grim clarity. There were no broken doors, no shattered windows. The sophisticated security system had never been triggered. Every sign that might suggest an outside intruder was absent. That fact extinguished any hope of a stranger's involvement and confirmed the fear Rob Reiner had quietly voiced the night before. The threat hadn't come from beyond the gates. It wasn't an unknown figure in the shadows. The danger was already inside the house. It didn't need to force entry, it belonged there. This home hadn't been breached. It had been betrayed. The bedroom, meant to be the safest space for an aging couple, was violated by the very person they had loved, raised, and repeatedly welcomed back. And the evidence didn't stop there. What forensic teams discovered on the victims' bodies revealed something far more disturbing. According to Mary Ellen O'Toole, a former FBI behavioral analyst who reviewed the case, the violence met the definition of overkill, force far beyond what was necessary to cause death. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It wasn't about money. It was deeply personal. The killer didn't just want them dead. He wanted them erased. Years of buried resentment and unresolved conflict exploded into relentless brutality. And within that frenzy, the attacker made a critical mistake. Investigators call it slippage. When repeated, excessive force causes the weapon to slip, injuring the attacker himself. His blood mixed with theirs. A biological transfer that cannot be explained away. It placed Nick Reiner at the scene at the exact moment of the killings. But after committing such an act, what happened next? Did he flee in panic? Did remorse finally break through? The answer lay not in Brentwood, but 15 miles away, captured on surveillance footage that would send a chill through investigators. This footage would dismantle any argument that Nick was unaware, out of control, or lost in insanity. While police secured the crime scene and loved ones collapsed in grief, something else was unfolding quietly across the city. Many expected a dramatic manhunt, sirens screaming, helicopters overhead, a suspect running blindly from justice. Defense teams were likely preparing the familiar narrative, a complete psychological collapse, a mind unable to comprehend reality or consequence. But that wasn't the story the cameras told. LAPD surveillance led investigators to a gas station near Exposition Boulevard and Vermont Avenue, far from Brentwood's polished streets. The footage showed no chaos, no desperation. Nick Reiner appeared clearly, calmly. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding his face. Instead, he moved with unsettling composure. He wore a black and green jacket, a baseball cap worn casually, and a bright red backpack over his shoulder. He walked the aisles slowly, like someone passing time on a quiet Sunday morning, not someone who had just murdered his parents. He paused at the refrigerated drinks, considered his choices, and selected a sports drink. That moment alone stunned investigators. Then he stepped into line. And what happened next would deliver the final blow to any claim that he didn't know exactly what he was doing. Nick Reiner stood in line like any other customer. He didn't rush. He didn't tremble. There were no visible signs of panic or distress. When his turn came, he calmly paid with a credit card. That single act speaks volumes. Swiping the card, entering a PIN or signing, waiting for authorization, and collecting the receipt. Each step requires awareness, attention, and rational thought. The cashier later told investigators the man seemed completely normal, polite, quiet, nothing alarming. And that matters. Criminal psychology experts agree that even severe mental breakdowns usually leave behavioral chaos behind. A person truly out of control appears confused, frantic, disoriented. Nick was none of those things. What his actions reveal is a controlled dissociation, a mind capable of sealing away the violence he had just committed and instantly returning to functional, everyday behavior. He was lucid enough to exit without attracting attention, focused enough to navigate Los Angeles public transportation and travel 15 miles with intention. This was not random wandering. It was deliberate movement. And the gas station wasn't the end of his route. Investigators later tracked him to a hotel in Santa Monica, where his behavior shifted from routine to calculated concealment. According to reports, Nick didn't collapse in exhaustion or remorse after checking in. Instead, he began hiding. He covered the hotel room windows completely with cloth. That detail is critical. Ask yourself, if someone is lost in delusion or insanity, why worry about being seen? Blocking the outside world is a clear sign of awareness, of guilt. He knew what he had done. He knew people would be searching for him. He understood the news would break, that helicopters might soon fill the sky. That room wasn't a place to rest. It was a temporary refuge, intentionally constructed. Forensic specialists believe the time there was used to destroy evidence. The bright red backpack likely held blood-stained clothing from earlier. The shower was likely used to wash away the final physical traces from his body. Every action pointed to control and evasion, not confusion or mental collapse. And when the manhunt ended, it did so quietly. When LAPD officers finally located Nick Reiner, there was no chase, no violence. He was found walking alone and surrendered without resistance, calm to the very end. But what followed surprised many. Nick wasn't taken to the general jail population. He was immediately placed in a specialized medical unit, isolated under constant video surveillance. Every movement, every moment was monitored. Officially, this was for his protection in such a high-profile case. But in reality, that unit became the next battleground, the legal one. The defense will point to it and say, he's ill. He needs treatment, not prison. They will reference his schizophrenia diagnosis, repeated rehabilitation attempts, and recent medication changes that may have worsened his condition. They will portray him as another casualty of a broken mental health system. But prosecutors will have one devastating counterargument. They will play the gas station footage. They will show the jury a man calmly browsing shelves, choosing a drink, waiting his turn, and paying without hesitation. They will argue that monsters don't always look unhinged. Sometimes, the most dangerous ones appear perfectly normal, polite, quiet, and unremarkable. The monster doesn't always look monstrous. Sometimes it's the customer standing beneath harsh fluorescent lights, calmly holding a sports drink, while his parents lie lifeless back at home. That 15-mile stretch between Brentwood and the gas station isn't merely a drive across Los Angeles. It's a psychological gulf, separating the son Rob Reiner believed he could still save from the man frozen in that surveillance footage. As this story deepens, it forces us to confront painful truths about the limits of love. Rob Reiner spent his life telling stories about humanity, faith in family, and the instinct to protect. Yet tragically, he couldn't see that walls built to keep the world out don't always keep danger away. Sometimes, those same walls seal us inside with a threat we refuse to acknowledge. This case is far from finished. In fact, it's only beginning. Legal battles over sanity, intent, and responsibility will drag on for months, perhaps years. But for the public, and for those who stood inside Conan O'Brien's home that night, the conclusion already feels written. This tragedy was born from love stretched beyond its breaking point. From parents who clung to hope, believing they could still rescue a child who had already embraced darkness. Looking back, from the elegant party, to the blood-soaked home, to the unsettling calm of a man shopping, one brutal lesson remains. Money, influence, access to the best care in the world. None of it matters when the danger is already inside the house. Rob and Michelle Reiner gave more to the world than they ever took from it. And now, their legacy risks being eclipsed by this devastating ending. The case file may pause here in terms of events, but the echo of this tragedy will linger, over Hollywood and far beyond, for a very long time. If you believe this story should be shared as a warning, a reminder of the shadows behind fame, and the urgent need to recognize signs of psychological collapse within our own families, speak up. This isn't just about a crime. It's about families hiding fractures behind closed doors until there's no time left to stop the fall.